Good morning from a chilly Animal Kingdom. It's just under 50 degrees this morning, so we're bundled up. Hope you are too. Make sure you have a hot cup of coffee for this one, because not only is it chilly, but we have a conversation that we need to have. I figured this would be a great place to have it. So whatever your drink of choice, grab it, snuggle up in a warm blanket. Let's enjoy our day here at Animal Kingdom and talk a little bit about the tour guide situation that's unfolding here at Walt Disney World. Of course, before we really get started, we need to take a look at our surroundings, and goodness, are they absolutely gorgeous here in this corner of the park. Get this beautiful unobstructed view. But if you're not sure where I'm at, currently here just behind Flame Tree Barbecue. So that building right there is Flame Tree Barbecue. Of course, there's a lot of other seating here as well. We hang out here all the time, especially in the morning because it is so empty. Everyone's going for the attractions that they want to ride, and I kind of tuck myself into this corner and just enjoy the park, enjoy the music, enjoy the flotillas, which will come by over here. Of course, this was a great place to watch kite tails, and I'm sure it was amazing for Rivers of Light, but right now there's nothing going on over here. Anyway, now that we've taken a second to enjoy ourselves, let's start this conversation, because it is a pretty big one, and I think it's one that we really need to have. So there's been something happening at Walt Disney World recently that has some people a little bit shook up, some people a little bit concerned, and that is that they've been cracking down on third-party tour guides in the parks. But I realize I might be getting a little bit ahead of myself, so let's take a step back and talk about what exactly third-party tour guides are. So third-party tour guides are outside companies that are not affiliated with Walt Disney World, that are offering a service to guests who visit Walt Disney World and visit the theme parks. For a fee, you can hire them to tour you around the parks and do any number of things for you. Now, of course, just like with anything else, price point and the services vary depending on what company you go with, as do the claims of what it is that they can accomplish for you. And of course, this can be incredibly convenient and enticing for some people, but it can also be a problem. And we'll talk about why here in a second, but first, look at who's coming by. It's the Discovery Island Drummers. They're making their way down on the flotilla, playing some holiday music. Like I said, it's the perfect spot to enjoy that right here. Now, I'm sure you might be wondering why this would be a problem. To hire someone to take you around the park, maybe book your lightning lanes for you, help you navigate the app. It's a really good question. And we'll talk a little bit more about why that is here in a bit. But first I want to get into what exactly is happening here at Walt Disney World and what that crackdown has looked like. According to the accounts of some of these third-party tour guides who have spoken on this issue, what's been happening is that they arrive to the park and are pulled out of line when they're trying to enter the park, where they're then being issued a ban from the parks, in most cases a lifetime ban, which they do have the ability to appeal in 12 months' time, but still, just like that, they're escorted off property, and the family who hired them now don't have the guide that they paid for. Which, if we're being honest, presents a few different problems for a few different types of people, including the families who no longer have that guide that they were probably counting on having for their Disney vacation, which is one of the reasons that I wanted to talk about this. It's not just about a hot topic, it's not just about some news story, but more so, it's about trying to help those of you out there avoid ending up in a position like this. Because as I always say, we try to help you have the best vacation possible, we try to help you eliminate as much stress as possible, and let me just say, this would be off the charts stress, at least for me, so I'm sure it would be for you too. Of course, before we move on, I have to show you this absolutely beautiful spot that I've been sitting in. It's just gorgeous over here. Also, right behind Flame Tree Barbecue. We moved positions. We were right over there, now we're right over here. Beautiful, isn't it? Now, if it seems a little excessive to you that Disney would hand out a lifetime ban to a third-party tour guide operating in the parks, you're not alone. There are a lot of people who feel the same way. They think that this is excessive. They think that there should have been more notice. There should have been some sort of warning. But like with everything in life, this is a complicated issue, and I want to share some of my perspective on it to maybe help you better understand what I think is going on from the perspective of someone who is here at the parks all the time, but also from a business perspective as well, because both of those are very important, especially with this issue. First, let's start with that business bit. Now, it's important to understand that Disney has rules. And this is something that I think some people are surprised by. They don't realize that Disney has a set of rules for their theme parks and for their property in general. And those rules and guidelines can not only be found on the Walt Disney World website, they're found in the app, and some of them can also be found posted outside the parks. For example, in the entrance just before security. These rules include everything from the size of strollers and what is and isn't permitted here at the parks. It also includes things like dress code. And included in those rules and guidelines is information about commercial activities. Mainly that unapproved commercial activities are not permitted within the parks. Admittedly, some of these guidelines are pretty vague, and that's an argument that a lot of people present when they talk about third-party tour guide situation. What do you mean commercial activity? What do you mean unapproved? And you know, it's a reasonable question, and one that when it comes up in casual conversation, I totally understand. Hold on a second. I think that's Santa. There he is! The man himself!
Merry Christmas!
Okay, so what was I saying? Oh yeah, it's a reasonable question to ask if you're having casual conversation, but it becomes a really important question to ask if you are going to conduct business, if you're going to put all your eggs in the basket of doing some sort of commercial activity here at Walt Disney World, especially when it's right in the rules. But whether you're just casually having this conversation or you're thinking about getting into the business of doing something commercially at Walt Disney World, I think we need to be reasonable here, and we need to think about what that activity is. And something that is really important to ask yourself every time you get into any type of business, is that going to be in direct competition with anyone, especially in a case like this, where your service may or may not be in direct competition with the place you're offering your service in. And if I'm being completely honest and inserting a little bit more of my personal opinion here than I have elsewhere in this conversation already, this is where I think a lot of people go wrong. They don't understand that a third-party tour guide is quite literally in direct competition with the service that Disney is offering, because Disney does, in fact, offer tour guide services themselves inside the park. And herein lies not only the problem, but what I think makes this problem so complex. Because look, do you remember how earlier I said that every third-party tour guide company operates differently? They all have different names for their service, they all promise different things, and this can, among other things, lead to confusion. I mean, goodness knows, I know that there's one company out there that calls the tours that they offer VIP tours. That's the exact same name as what Disney is offering. So just that alone can lead to any number of problems. Number one, a sense of confusion. Maybe guests think they're booking one thing and they end up booking another. It can also lead to the problem of guests potentially going to guest services and complaining about a service that Disney didn't offer them and that they didn't pay Disney for. I mean, imagine booking what you think is a VIP tour, getting to your vacation destination, and it's not what you expected. Certainly not what you saw some people talking about online, maybe on social media. Then you go to guest relations to complain. You're like, this is not what I paid for. And guest relations is like, you didn't book a VIP tour with us. You booked through a third party. Imagine the confusion. And I'm gonna be honest with you, there's no doubt in my mind that Disney has fielded complaints like this, because especially when you're calling it the same exact thing, which some third-party tour guides do, it causes confusion. So it's a lot to think about. Like I said, it's a complicated issue. And when you think about it like that, it definitely isn't a good look for a business, and it definitely puts a business in a tough position. But setting the business perspective aside for a second, I want to talk about the perspective of the guest. People like maybe even yourself who would consider booking a VIP tour or a third-party tour guide so that you could make your vacation a little bit easier. A big question that people are asking, myself included, is what exactly does a third-party tour guide get paid for? Now, don't get me wrong, there are definitely things that having an extra hand with you can accomplish, but specifically someone who is a tour guide, someone who is claiming that they can help you get through the lines easier, someone who is making claims that, quite frankly, I'm not sure how they can deliver on, aside from the convenience of having someone book your lightning lanes for you or stay with the little one in your family who doesn't meet the height requirement. As someone who is here at the parks all the time, who tries out different strategies, who makes plenty of mistakes and tries to help you figure out how to manage the parks on your own, I really struggle to see how a third-party tour guide has access to anything that you don't have access to yourself. And we've talked about this before. I've talked about this when I've talked about travel agents, and tour guides, well, they're kind of travel agent adjacent. A lot of them are part part of travel agencies, but it feels like a very similar conversation to me. While they can be convenient, are they doing anything that you can't do yourself? The answer is no, not really. At least not in terms of making your way around the park, navigating the app, and doing stuff like that. I don't want to give you the wrong impression here. I definitely understand that having an extra adult around is a huge help, especially for families with lots of kids. That's a different thing altogether. But specifically in terms of navigating the complexities of Walt Disney World as a whole, I struggle with justifying the necessity of a tour guide, particularly a tour guide with a hefty price tag. But as I always say, to each their own. Everyone has different wants and needs. Everyone certainly has different budgets. And I'm not saying this as a way to kind of share too much of my personal feelings on this. Rather, my intention is to communicate that I think you're more capable of doing this than you realize, and certainly more capable of doing it than some people will lead you to believe you are. And that right there is an important part of this conversation too. Now, what I'm about to say is likely going to sound really harsh, but it's a reality, and we never shy away from realities, so why would I do that now? But businesses like travel agents, like tour guides, whether we're talking about Disney or anywhere else in the world, they thrive on your insecurity. It is their goal to make you feel less comfortable and less capable than you already are. The solution, of course, offering up their services. And I will say, I do think that there are a lot of great travel agents out there. Unfortunately, there are a lot of scammy travel agents out there. That's something that's been popping up. And it's also something that's existed, again, forever. And there are certainly a lot of people who are well-intentioned, who are trying to share information without trying to make you seem like you're incapable of doing something on your own. I aim to be one of those people. I don't want you to feel like you can't do this. I want you to know that you can, and providing you with all the information that you need in order to do things on your own. Because I really do believe in you. I know it might sound mushy, but it's true. Unfortunately, not everyone operates that way. And this is especially the case when people talk about things like having to sell you someone to guide you through a place like Walt Disney World. I'm sure you've heard plenty of people talking about how complicated it can be, plenty of people saying that there's no way you can do this on your own and that's why you need to hire them or you need them to assist you. And we've been hearing a lot of this too, especially, unfortunately, from some of the tour guides who have been sharing their experience during this somewhat challenging time here at the parks, especially for tour guides themselves. And I really do think that that's too bad, because I think that when you overinflate how complicated things are, people, they get scared, they get nervous, and they feel like they can't do it on their own. Some people won't end up doing it at all because they can't afford the assistance. Some people won't end up doing it all because it's just too intimidating. And it's not how travel should be. And you know, my strong opinions on this topic, that topic being that people like me should be encouraging and empowering people like you to feel comfortable traveling and exploring and seeing new things without needing someone to hold your hand the entire time, has really got me thinking about how I want to do things in the future, mainly the coming year. Because of course, it's a new year, perfect opportunity for a new start. And I do think that, especially with some of the concern that's been expressed by people out there who are now worried that they won't be able to get the help that they so desperately need to visit Walt Disney World because they potentially won't have access to these third-party tour guides, there are some things that I want to circle back to and talk about so that you feel good about planning your vacations and visiting Walt Disney World, even if you don't have the money or the ability to get that official VIP tour from Disney itself. And one of the things that I want to do is kind of a deep dive into Walt Disney World as a whole. I want to really dig into the topics that I think people need to know about. Some of the topics so simple that I think they're easy to gloss over, but they're also so important, especially for first-time visitors or visitors who just need more information so that they can feel comfortable visiting Walt Disney World. I want to dig into the planning process. I want to talk about the pros and cons of so many things that, again, get glossed over. So I really think that that's something we're going to focus on as we move into the new year. I'll be honest with you, I already have a notebook filled with topics that I want to cover. And of course, if you have any questions, concerns, or anything that you think needs to be discussed too, whether you're someone who's never visited before or you have and you think that something really needs to be touched on and you don't hear too much about it, pop it in the comments. We're making our way to the car now, and you know what that means. So marks the end of today's adventure and discussion. And you know, since our little adventure today has come to an end, I do want to take a second and be very clear about something, because I know that this is a difficult conversation and one that I'm sure has or will ruffle some feathers. First and foremost, it is in no way my intention to try and call out anyone in particular. This conversation is not about pointing fingers. It's about making sure that information is out there, especially for people who, quite frankly, aren't in the know about this. I know that there are a lot of people out there who might be considering working with a third-party tour guide. There are some people out there who might have a third-party tour guide booked. And if you happen to be one of those people, I do think that it's important that you are aware that it might not work out. Certainly not as advertised, and goodness knows you might find yourself in a position where your tour guide gets stopped getting into the park and gets banned. You might even find out that your tour guide has already been banned. So it's important to make sure that right now, especially ahead of the holiday season, you're taking the time to contact people, do your research, and understand, as uncomfortable as this reality might be, that if you did not book with Disney, and I'm not talking about through a Disney travel agent, but if you did not book a Walt Disney World VIP tour, it is operating against company policy here, and quite frankly, is not guaranteed. So keep that in mind moving forward. Of course, if you're someone who's getting started on the process of planning a vacation and you were thinking about going this route and now realize that it's not the route that you should go and you won't be able to afford a VIP tour from Disney themselves, keep in mind that it's not as impossible as some people make it out to be. Goodness knows it's not nearly as impossible as some people make it out to be. And that's one of the things that we focus on here. We want to give you the information that you need in order to make a Disney vacation possible, no matter who you are, no matter when you're visiting. So if you want to follow along on that, you want a little bit more guidance on how to make that possible, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you can have all the tools that you need in order to have the best vacation with the least amount of stress possible. That's our goal here. I think you can do it. I'm positive you can, in fact. So let's figure out how to make that happen together. Of course, as always, you're always welcome to share your thoughts and ask your questions in a comment down below. I do my best to get back to everyone and answer every single question, whether or not I do it in an actual comment or in a video. Sometimes I'll take you around and answer your question so that you can see with me. We can explore together. So know that that's a resource that is available to you. We aim to be a resource. We aim to help you help yourself. So follow along with us if that's something you're interested in. If not, I hope you had fun today. I hope you enjoyed talking about this topic with me. I'm sure it's going to ruffle some feathers. I know it's a difficult one, but it's one that I think is important to discuss. So that's just what we did. Of course, if you enjoyed this conversation, hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already for all the reasons that I explained and because we got some fun stuff going on. And feel free to share your thoughts in a comment down below. As always, we're looking forward to seeing what you have to say, and we're looking forward to you joining our next adventure. So we hope to see you then. Until then, we hope you have a great day and you stay warm wherever it is you are.